the legacy of our founders. May we grant to this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Please honor our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Counselor Norn.
Here.
Counselor Elliott.
Here.
Counselor Kennedy.
Here.
Counselor Leahy.
Here.
Counselor Laurie.
Here.
Counselor Martin.
Here.
Counselor Mendonça.
Here.
Counselor Mercia.
Here.
It's 9 present.
Thank you. At this time, I'd recognize Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in darkened chamber for Edward Patrick Ned Sheehy, who passed away so young and before his time. Ned was the beloved son of former city manager and state senator Paul Sheehy, and a woman who has done so much in the field of education, both in the Lowell school system and Middlesex Community College. And she was a teacher to all of my children as well, Molly Sheehy. Ned worked for more than 20 years at the John J. Janis skating rink and for the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Management for many years. Ned was a lifelong Lowellian and a gifted athlete. He was a devoted son, brother, uncle, and dear friend to many who saw the good in life and who could fill any room with laughter. In addition to his parents, Paul and Molly, Ned is also survived by his brother Timothy and his 3 sisters, Maria, Ann, and Elizabeth, uncle to 7 children and a great uncle to 1. We offer our sympathy to his family, relatives, and many friends. He will be truly missed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mayor. I also would like to offer a moment of silence for Michael DuBois. He's a resident of Lowell, the Sacred Heart neighborhood. He's passed away on Saturday, February 2nd of this year. Michael was born in Lowell on August 26, 1983, a son of a late Norman DuBois and Regina Bernier DuBois. He was a graduate of Sacred Heart Grammar School, Lowell High School, and UMass Lowell. Michael was a popular English teacher before he came to Lowell High School teacher, freshman academy. He taught my son subject of health in the Daily Middle School. Michael loved teaching and loved his student. He was a devoted son, brother, nephew, uncle, friend, and teacher. He lived life to the fullest and cherished the time he spent with family and friend. Michael was a type of guy who always there when you need him. He could cheer you up with his contagious smile, which you couldn't help but return. Mike was warmest, love, and huggable, always have a positive attitude, always active, enjoy camping, going to beach, working out, and traveling. Michael was the most amazing uncle to his niece, nephew. He could fill any room with laughter, make friends wherever he was with, whomever he was with. He was wise beyond his year. Michael was great at everything he did. He was all about getting things done. He was a good listener and a good motivator. 2 qualities that make him a good person. Michael is survived by his 3 sisters, Jacqueline DuBois, Zachary, and her husband, James of Westwood, Diane DuBois, Prestipino of Lowell, and Susan DuBois, Frediani, and her husband, Jason of Lowell, and his brothers, David DuBois of Lowell, his adored niece and nephew. Michael also is adoring niece and nephew. He's also survived by many aunt, uncle, cousin, and friend. We offer our sympathy to his families and those who know him. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lowry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say a little bit about Ned. I was very much caught by surprise. I saw him at the hockey game last weekend, and it wasn't unusual. Usually, you always saw Ned at the hockey games, usually with Corey Belanger, and you know, just such a great young guy. For many years, I was the mailman on High Street Extension, and I spent my afternoon breaks many days sitting in his father's living room talking about either history, low politics, or any subject, and there weren't many days that Ned didn't come by the house, always doing something for his parents. Just a great young guy, and you know, I share with Councilor Mercier just a deep respect for the Sheehy family and for Ned, and thank you.
Thank you. If you'd all please rise in a moment.
Oh, 1 minute. You know, I just want to say this too before I end. I went to the wake on, I think it was Monday, and as you would expect, the lines were extraordinary, and I was glad to see the Lowell police there. We did have the police, and I just like to say, you know, it was such a very cold day, and just in front of me, a short way up in the line, there was a gentleman who got a little sick. He got very wheezy, and actually was a Lowell police officer who spotted him. It was Officer Ryan Dillon, who got him in the house and sat him down, and you know, God knows what would have happened if the officer didn't find him. I just want to pay a little tribute to Officer Dillon. I guess he was on his way in, he saw it, and just, I just want to just congratulate the officer on catching that also, and thank the city for supplying the police. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'd all please rise in a moment of silence and darken chambers. Thank you. First, we have Mayor's Business Appointment, Councilor Lowry to the Animal Advisory Committee. Move for approval by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Lowry. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Lowry. Yes. Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça.
Yes.
Councilor Mercier.
Yes.
It's 9 yeas.
Thank you. And thank you for being in attendance to accept this honor.
Thank you for the appointment, Mr. Mayor.
Next, we have City Clerk's portion of the agenda, minutes of the special meeting, January 29th, special meeting for the clerk, January 29th, City Council, January 29th for acceptance. So moved by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Martin. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. I've been asked to take the executive session out of order. We need a motion.
Motion to take the executive session, our orders.
Motion by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Councilor Kennedy.
Well, I guess we've already voted, but, I mean, we do have public hearings in 20 minutes. Is the executive session going to be that brief?
I was told it was not going to be that long. Councilor Elliott.
What is the purpose of taking it out of order?
We have the police chief and detective waiting to take it up, and otherwise it could be a very long meeting.
Okay, well, I think there's some people in attendance that are also on the agenda, right?
I was going to ask that when we, for Bigelow Street too, there's quite a few people here.
That's on the public hearing at 7.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah. The police officer and the chief work for us. There's people here for the public hearing that are just down here. What you're saying is let them wait so that we can do the public hearing first. You know, maybe it's going to be 20 minutes. I anticipate it's going to be longer than 20 minutes.
Well,
Councilor Martin.
maybe we just take
take up the executive session at the conclusion of the public hearings. That be okay?
Fine. Motion by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next item on the agenda, we have city manager's portion of the agenda. Communications from city manager, response to city council motions and requests and informational materials. Any discussion? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. We get a report from a dangerous dog pit bull bite. It does lay out the number of reports from the police department. I guess and there's an explanation of what took place, but what is the next step? This dog is deemed dangerous, and then there is some additional information on the back. They have to get insurance and abide by those issues. I'm just kind of curious how this is going to work. Through you, I guess, as solicitor.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have that. That is under my communications. I don't have that communication.
Well, it came in the packet. I didn't. Did everybody else get a copy of this report?
Well,
Yeah, it's a dangerous dog pit bull Duke.
I think those come from the clerk. So,
Come from you, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, Counsel, that in the past, those are generated by the clerk's office. They're not put on the agenda, understanding that there's a hearing that will be, the gentleman's requesting a hearing that will be moved forward with the hearing officer in the city. Upon that determination, he's got a right to appeal, but it's being scheduled for a hearing before the hearing officer.
That's not included. That's all I want to know.
Yeah,
What's the next step?
historically, I was told that they're included in the packet. We get them from the police department. We include them in the packet. They're not included on the agenda, but a hearing is
Good.
being set up on it.
And who conducts that hearing?
Ms. Mancheck.
Okay.
Councilor Lowry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I just want to thank the administration, the school department. This looks like it came from, actually, Jay Lang on the work that we did through the schools. It's quite a comprehensive piece of work that we did last year. Yeah. Oh, these the work orders?
There's two bits of.
I just got it on my desk tonight.
Right, there's a, in your communications, there's a listing of the, much of the work that we did out at the schools, totaling some $6 million.
They're in here, though, too, right?
That's
everything.
That's right, that's a one-page list,
Right.
two-page list.
This
But-
also includes what we did last spring.
What you have, the package that you put in front of you was delivered to me today by Mr. Lang, but it was in response to a request for some background on the work orders that we have outstanding. So those are work orders that are outstanding right now, some 800 work orders, down from the I think there was a number bandied about of 2,500. Many hadn't been closed out. So it's about 832 items that are still in queue to get to. Some, most of them are very minor issues, but that's what that's in preparation for tomorrow night.
We don't have the list of the work that we did?
We did. That's on the two-page. It doesn't list it out. That's, as I said, the work order system generates the, right.
Okay.
The work order system generates the very small items, like fixing a doorknob here or
Right.
fixing a
I saw that on the,
pipe.
and then I,
That came in today, so I wanted you to have it for tomorrow night's subcommittee meeting.
okay, that's what I,
The two-page
I
memo
didn't know
that,
if they were included in this, and that was gonna be my question, because I just walked in tonight and this was on my desk. Okay, I wanna thank Mr. Lang anyway for bringing this out, and a couple of months ago, I brought in a motion, and it was answered, on the Spaghettiville Bridge, and we worked with the MBTA, and they were gonna put a new sign up. Did you see the sign?
I just saw the picture.
I did email it down to Mr. Bakey, and I guess we're going to contact the MBTA. I mean, really, this is laughable. When they said they were going to put up a sign, I thought they were going to put up a sign possibly with flashing lights, and this is a disgrace, really. I was at the health club this week, and someone mentioned it to me, and I got this in an email, and, well, not this one, maybe a separate picture. But if we can contact the MBTA on this, and, I was just shocked that what came out of this. Also, not on the packet tonight, but again, a motion that I made some time ago, and it is going to be part of the public hearing tonight, is the Bigelow Street. I put in a motion to move that over to, I guess it was suburban residential, and I just want to thank the administration, Mr. Bakey's staff, for the work they did, and the planning board to get that to this point tonight. And I think that would be just about it. Thank you.
Council Leahy and then Council Elliott.
Thank you. Through you to the manager, thank you for the report for tomorrow night's meeting. I did just want to make sure that, are we going to have the appropriate department heads there tomorrow too for discussion, or is this?
Yes,
okay.
we will.
Because the science lab information wasn't quite what I was looking for, but I know when Councilman Donson was there, we did some good repairs for the accreditation, and I thought maybe a few years later, we did some more, so I was kind of looking for that.
Yeah, we couldn't seem to generate much information on that, but we'll have people here tomorrow night to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Council Elliott.
Well, the bridge wasn't under communications, but I guess we're allowing the discussion of it. But I get a copy of that picture too, and Councilor Laurie said it correctly. This is laughable. I don't even know why they put it up. It's just a joke. You know, there's an article in the Globe today about, you know, low bridges in the Boston area, and, you know, all those people got injured when a bus, you know, went underneath a low bridge. So God forbid that would happen, but I don't know. Wasn't there a meeting set up, Mr. Manager, with the MBTA, and they were going to do something, and did we not know what they were going to put up?
Mr. Manager.
There was discussions held with the MBTA. This sign came as a surprise to us as well. And as I say, we're reaching out to them to have something else put up. So I agree with the council that have spoken on this.
And is this going to be the last, I mean, is this the final alternative, a sign, and that is it? Is that what MBTA came
I
up
think
with?
they were also talking about working to raise the bridge, because it is a bridge that's owned by the MBTA, and they were talking about that as really the ultimate solution. But there was that, and then we were going to continue to explore some other alternatives as well.
Okay, well, they're not going to, I mean, let's face it, that's, the right option is not going to happen. And, you know, this is kind of an insult. Okay.
Any further discussion? Mr. Manager?
If I may, the one piece of communication here that I think is very significant that I just wanted to bring to the council's attention is the one on the 2014 local aid analysis. As you know, we've been shooting and working towards trying to bring in the 2014 budget at with a zero tax increase, again, similar to what we did this year. And initially, I know that I sent information out to the council with the governor's proposed numbers that were showing $4.5 million in increased Chapter 70 and $824,000 in unrestricted aid. And much of that is dependent upon the governor's proposals that he's set forth regarding revenue and certain goals that he has with regards to education and local aid and, in particular, transportation. As the additional information came out, though, with the cherry sheets, several days later, we were able to do the full analysis, and I just wanted to note that as I do in the memo, that 2014, it actually, even though we were getting additional money that we had not anticipated, the charter school assessment went up dramatically by $6.8 million. And now we are getting an additional 5.7 of charter school reimbursement, but that's a $1.1 million increase in our costs. So net that off of everything, and we're really looking for a deficit right now as we're beginning our preparations for fiscal year 2014. Our projections are showing a difference there of about $1.3 million. So I just wanted to bring that to the council's attention. We are going to be working over the course of the next several months to bring that down to zero, but it's something that as we look at items for revenues and expenditures moving forward, it's something that we have to keep in mind.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
What is your time frame, Mr. Manager, to bring the budget in? I mean, I noticed other communities are already rolling out their budget. I mean, Amherst, I don't know how they did it, but they rolled it out about a month ago.
Who did that?
Excuse me, town of Amherst.
Oh, Amherst, Mass? Towns really do it differently because they're dependent upon town meeting,
Right.
and they take their actions generally in March or April.
Right.
That's typically before the state budget is complete, and then they have to make alterations at their fall town meetings. Cities have the advantage of being able to act differently. I know that the city of Lowell has, for many years, wrapped up their budget just at the end of June. This administration has always tried to get the budget and it has been successful in getting the budget to the city council at the end of May, the beginning of June, and I would expect that would be the same this year as well.
Very good, thank you.
Any further discussion? Entertain a motion to accept and place on file. So moved by Councilman Johnson, seconded by Councilor Kennedy. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have communication, report, and recommendation from the Planning Board regarding the proposed amendment to establish the SSF zoning district to include parcels at 160.1 and 160.2 Swan Street, and all parcels with frontage on Bigelow Street. Entertain a motion to accept and place on file. So moved by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have a communication, report and recommendation from the Planning Board regarding the proposed amendment relative to the medical marijuana treatment center. Entertain a motion to accept and place on file. So moved by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Communication from City Manager, request approval of out-of-state travel, one for the Health Department. What's the wish of the council? So moved for approval by Councilman Johnson, seconded by Councilor Martin. Roll call, please.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Laurie.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mendoza.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have a vote, authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement for a period of 20 years with Soltis Energy Corporation regarding net metering. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilman Johnson, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title in City Council vote. Authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Soltis Energy Corporation regarding a net metering program for a period of 20 years. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is really a great opportunity for the city, essentially free money, taking advantage of the state's solar incentive programs. As you know from our prior discussions regarding solar energy in the Commonwealth, the state has set up a process by which facilities that generate solar power can sell that back to the utility companies, or they could, in the case of people, they can utilize it to offset their electricity rates. But there isn't a facility that they're putting it towards, that it, as I say, it goes back into the grid. And the state has required that a certain amount of energy be generated in this way. And that what becomes of that is what's known as net metering credits. And the state set up standards that, or guidelines that put this requirement in place, but up to a cap of 3% of the energy being generated, total energy being generated in the Commonwealth. There are two pools. The 3% applies to two pools, private and public entities. In the case of the private, those net metering credits have been exhausted. In the case of the public, they're quickly approaching a period where those credits will reach their max. There are a number of companies that have built these solar facilities or have them in the planning process that are trying to place these credits so that they can get the funds from that to pay for the cost of construction and their own profit. But they can't do it as private entities. They need public entities in which to partner with. And in this case, we learned of this several months ago, and we had a number of entities come to us and offer to sell us these net metering credits. And so we decided that the best way to do this would be through a competitive process, and we put out an RFP. And as a result of that, we had a number of submissions, and in the end, the review committee recommended that we go with Soltas. At the current time, the net metering credit is 14 cents per kilowatt hour. The agreement that we've reached with Soltas is that they would give us 3 cents of the 14 for us to utilize towards our energy costs. So this is essentially, as I said, free money for us. We're playing the role of, for lack of a better term, laundering the money through so that they can then have it to pay for their costs of construction and costs of development, and the city simply serves the purpose of assisting with the financing that goes with that. And in this case, that 3% will mean approximately $240,000 for the city of Lowell per year for the next 20 years.
Thank you. Any discussion? Entertain a motion? Councilor Kennedy.
20 years, that 240, that's constant for all 20 years? So it would
Correct.
be the same thing 8, 10, 15 years from now?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And so that 240,000 is really just, it isn't really money, it's money that we don't have, that will come back, but it's not, it'll be a reduction in what we would spend, right? That's really what it is.
Correct, and that would free up other money within the budget.
Right.
Correct.
And so just a few minutes ago, you spoke about the anticipated shortfall right now being 1.3, and so this would cut into that by that amount of money, is that correct?
Correct.
Any further discussion? Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Through you to the manager, if it's, so it's 240,000 per year for 20 years?
Correct.
Isn't that money less to us, though, as time goes on, though?
True.
So what's the benefit in 20 years, like 50,000? I mean, shouldn't it be going up every year, so we get the full 3% or whatever
It's 3 cents.
3 cents?
3 cents
Okay.
on we don't know what energy costs are going to do. It could be such that they go up, it could be such that they go down, particularly given the newer technology that's out there with certain energy production. So it's hard to say exactly. That's why we went, this proposal has a great degree of certainty. The project's built and the money is guaranteed. Other proposals that we received haven't been built yet. They're still in the permitting process, and the structure of the deal was such that there was greater risk. And we didn't want to be in a position of placing greater risk.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilor Lowry.
From what I understand, from what I've read, this is somewhat of a state project. We don't negotiate the price. It's a pretty standard price.
The 14 cents is standard.
Yeah.
Our share of that would vary by proposal, but as I said, there were different proposals that were put forward, but this was the least risky.
Okay.
Councilor Martin.
Thank you, and I appreciate the information here. And I've been involved in some of these contracts with clients of mine, and I can see Councilor Leahy's point about, shouldn't we be trying to get an upside on this? And there were proposals in here that would let us ride with the market, right? That we could have gone with the market, but then you're in the position of predicting what the market for these credits is going to do. It could be less than 3 cents or more, and given some of the technology with natural gas, I concur with the analysis that the fixed price is probably the best deal, even though it's certainly going to be worth less 20 years than it is today. At least it's a fixed amount, and so I think it's a good piece of work and enables us to take advantage of something that may not be available much longer.
Correct.
Thank you. Councilman Donzo.
Segue in from Councilor Martins. There was a sense of urgency in that these caps may be reached, and then communities wouldn't have this available to them, or even the companies that are making it available to us. Could you speak to that and the certainty part about why we need to get in on this now?
Right, every day it seems that there's more projects get permitted and the credits are sold off. As I said, it's capped at that 3% of energy that's being utilized in the public realm. So as that disappears, communities are trying to grab onto this as quickly as they can, or utilize this opportunity. And projects are trying to put themselves in place as quickly as they can so that they get in before that cap is gone. I think the number I think I heard is 90% of the solar projects don't move, they started, but they don't finish.
So the firm that you're recommending right now is one that already has a solar project in place, whereas the others still need to get the proper funding and then build it, at which time the cap may be reached and there wouldn't be any credits left for us to obtain.
Exactly.
To utilize.
And in fact, we could potentially see some of these credits hitting our books this year.
Yeah, so it could be as early as
April.
But that would be great for our fiscal condition, so, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy?
I've had some discussion with Mr. Moses about this over the past couple of days, and I was concerned about the 20 years, and Councilor Leahy does make a good point. This RFP, though, went out back in November, and it was accepted back in November. So there's a lot of time when we could have had this several weeks ago instead of just now. We're kind of getting it, and we're getting it with the idea that we should vote on this tonight so that we don't miss out on the max. And I understand that there was an evaluation team, but why would we give the evaluation team 2 months and the city council 2 days?
Well, the evaluation team went through the process of reviewing all the bids and talking to the bidders, getting all of that work done, the legwork that went into that, is very time-consuming. And in fact, we just had a bid conference to talk about these within the last week or so, 2 weeks. So there's been work right up until this point with with what the evaluation team had to do.
How many proposals came in?
Seven.
Right?
Mr. Vaughn?
We issued the RFP November 5th. Proposals were due November 27th, and we had 8 proposals in. Within each of those 8 proposals were multiple offers in some of the companies. That's what took us so long to do the evaluation. It wasn't quite like I expected. I've not seen this process before on the reviews.
Okay. But wasn't it whittled down to 3 at one point?
We interviewed the top 3 scoring candidates based on the recommendation of the scoring committee.
Okay. And when did we do that?
About a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago? About a week and a half ago. We had to wait a week to get it on council for tonight.
Okay.
It was about that time. It was Christmas season by the time we got everything, first week, second week in January before we had all the interviews done.
Thank you. I think this is a good idea, but it would have been good to have a little more time than what we had. And I appreciate that Mr. Moses called and went over the whole thing with me, so that, that's all good. But still, it would have been good to have a few more days, especially, for people that aren't familiar with this, it's somewhat complex to grasp it. And so it would have been good for the council if they had a little more time. And so just in the future, it's better not to bring it in here at the 11th hour, I think. Thanks.
Councilor Elliott?
Either to you, Mr. Manager, or Mr. Vaughn. Every respondent solicited or submitted a variable offer, with the exception of Soltis. So why is it everyone else submitted? They didn't submit, they submitted a variable offer except for Soltis.
Soltis offered us a fixed money piece for us. We had other fixed offers, but it was variable to the city, you're correct. They wanted their portion to be fixed, and there was a third set of options that was, both sides were fixed. And it all depended on the net metering credits. Today, it's $14. A couple of years ago, it was $19. There's some subjectivity of where it will be in a few years. They offered it. I can certainly ask why. We didn't really get into the why they chose to do that, but they did, and we felt it was a strong proposal. And those two projects are already built, so it was something we thought we can get into now before some other community did it.
And I understand, something is fixed, you know that it's coming in, but 20 years, 20 years is a long time. I mean, things could change significantly in 20 years. Who knows what the value, you look at the value of a dollar today and what it was, 20 years ago. I'm leery of committing, something for 20 years where it, as the manager says, it's so unpredictable, and it's so ever-changing. What is the guarantee that this company is going to be around in 20 years? And I guess I look at what other companies are offering, and if we're saying 3 cents will produce 240,000, Mr. Manager, some companies are offering 9 cents, 8 cents, actually mostly 8 and 9 cents. So would that transmit?
That's their portion of what they wanted. That's why it was fixed that way.
Okay, so
we would take the balance of what was left from the net metering credit.
Which would be what?
Today, it would be 4 cents or 5 cents because it's 14 cents.
But
Okay.
if the price
Can you explain that
drops-
net metering to me? And I did read, the memo, but it'd be helpful to have a little bit more of a better explanation as to exactly. If people have a solar, if they have a solar panel on their home and they produce extra electricity, then they're going to get a credit, right? And this is the same theory with the city?
Correct. Except that it's not here. It's somewhere in the middle of the state. And it's basically the amount that the state has determined is the price that should be paid for the generation of solar power.
And that's 14
cents per
14
kilowatt
and a half
hour.
cents per kilowatt hour.
January of this year.
So the developer is going to get that amount of money for net metering credit, no matter what developer. That's a fixed price.
Correct. Right.
And then these companies came in and said, this is what we're going to take off the top, and this is what we're willing to give you. And those other companies are 4 and 5 cents. What would change that 14 cents, that state fixed number?
The state would change that.
Let me make my question a little bit more specific. What, is that an annual bid that the state
No,
puts out?
it's-
Is it
it's
based on market conditions?
It is. The net metering credit is made up of two pieces. The distribution charge, which has been pretty constant for the last many years, is just under 7 cents.
7 cents, right?
And the rest of it's based on generation.
Right. So, these companies, they must look at energy projections for the next 20 years, right? They're not coming with a proposal and saying, we're giving you X amount. What is the trend? That is going to be an increase in energy costs?
Well, it's hard to say. Many of the projections that were done some months ago, were done without knowing, for instance, what's happening with fracking, the natural gas. I think that's what Councilor Kennedy was referring to. I believe when he's talked about the natural gas. Suddenly, there's quite a bit of speculation that may produce much cheaper electricity moving forward, which thereby would, may perhaps drive that net metering credit down. On the other hand, it could go another way. It could go up. It's hard. You're right. It is hard to predict what's going to happen 20 years from now, which again is why we think that the sure thing is better than the opposite, and we think it's more secure that we would have that moving forward.
No, it's a tough one. It's money in the bank now, but if energy goes through the roof, energy prices, then the city could be losing out on millions, right?
Well, except that we could lose, it would have to go up quite a bit to lose millions. I mean, it's at 14 cents. When we were sort of playing around with the numbers, if it went up to 20 cents, you'd be talking potentially another, I think, penny plus, 1.2 cents. So certainly that would be the case. But at the same time, we might lose, if it drops down, if we go another type of route, if the price drops, we might lose money.
So is there any way, 20 years, is this what Solstice said? Look, we're only going 20 years because that's what, we project out. They're going to make money. Did these other companies submit a minimum number of years? Can we
think
go
they were
10
all 20.
years? They're all 20?
The ones that were the top scoring were all 20. And why this proposal's up right now, this RFP has the ability to award a second bidder for some of this power ability. We just wanted to be this one forward now to lock in, because these projects are built and developed. Faster we can get the money, but we have the ability to take as many net credits as we use electricity, and that's the key. We couldn't take
But
a
that's
million
based upon the credit availability from the state, correct?
That's the other wild card, that's why it's here today.
How much money is available through the state for those credits? Is it,
I don't know if there's actually money.
how does it work?
You want to come up here?
Could you
and
go to the podium, please?
Thank you for this opportunity. The public and the private caps are both capped right now at about, I think it's 153 megawatts, and once that's reached, technically, the net metering program goes away, and these opportunities go away. The private cap has been oversubscribed. I think there's something like 470 megawatts of applications. Assuming a third of those get built, or even less, the opportunity's probably gone unless you're in the process. In the public, there's, I believe there's around 25 megawatts built and another 29 of applications. So there's a little bit of room left in the net metering queue for public projects. But there's no real cap on the price. It's really, it was indicated earlier, the net metering credit price right now is a kilowatt hour price of 14 cents, and that really moves up and down based on that generation, that supply price, which can change, I think, up to 3 times a year. And it's been going down because of fracking, and no one is really sure whether it's going to go up or down, but it's really a megawatt cap, not a price cap, as far as the limitation on the program.
So the state has a cap of 153.
It's state statute. It was raised this year from to 153 from, it went from 1% to 3%, so it went from about 53 to 153 this year. They raised it to help out all the projects that were getting built. And we think once that cap is reached, the program might take a pause for a while.
So Solstice, they're going to give the city 3 cents, and then they are going to, the balance of 11 cents goes to them, and that's their profit.
Right. So, right, exactly. I mean, we would apply the full 14 cents to your bill. You would keep 3 cents, and you'd return 11 cents, and we would take care of all the billing for that to make sure that was seamless. And the advantage is if prices are to go down, you still keep the 3 cents, and we might only get 8 cents, or if it went down to 11, and if it goes up, we would benefit. So we sort of take all the market risk on if electricity is going to go up or down. We thought that might be a better offer for the city, but.
But, so you're getting, over 3 times what the city's getting.
Right.
Right.
Right, it's cost of construction. The
I thought
projects
these were, I thought they were already built.
they're funded, they're built, well, they're under construction, actually. One of them is in Athol, Massachusetts, and all the posts and modules are going into the ground. And the other one is a few miles away in Orange, which is under construction right now. We are locked into the net metering queue, though. We are guaranteed net metering under the current process they set up. And the costs of, the solar costs are still fairly high. These are approximately 3.5 megawatt projects, and roughly, it's about, it's roughly around $3 million a watt to build a solar project right now, so they're still fairly expensive to put up.
I see.
Mr. Manager?
Well, I was just, the only point I was going to make, Mr. Mayor, is the variability of the net metering. They've been, over the last couple of years, they've gone from 8 cents to 19. So there's, so it's, gentleman has pointed out, if it drops down to 8 again, the city would still be guaranteed it's 3, and they would only get the 5, which goes towards their construction costs that they've set up their financing based on the sale of these net metering credits. So that's why we went with this route of avoiding any of the risk.
Council Lori?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we're talking about the power source, we're talking about non-traditional power sources, aren't we?
Right, and these are actually, it's a little bit of a,
Solar, windmills.
right, these are solar, and we're actually, I mean, it's a little bit confusing, but we're actually, we're not, the power's actually going out onto the distribution lines, the power lines, and it's going to people in those towns. They don't know it, but they're going to be eating it up. And the way the state has allowed us to finance these is to be able to place net metering credits on the bills of other entities like municipalities.
That leads to my next question. The reason why these are even feasible is the state credit, and the way Massachusetts is looking at alternative energy sources.
Correct.
So if they end these, you're taking the risk.
Right,
If
well,
the political climate changes,
right,
and Massachusetts is really no longer a leader in alternative energy source.
right.
You take the risk.
Well, there's 3 primary things that go into building and financing these. One of them is these net metering credits, which is great. It allows you to sell them sort of virtually to other people within the load zone. That's extremely helpful. The other is the state renewable energy credit, which is a Massachusetts-driven program. And that fluctuates up and down based on a kilowatt hour, and is very depressed right now compared to where the state had wanted it to be. And then there's the federal tax credit, which is set to expire in 2016. But if you can get in now, you're essentially grandfathered into the net metering credit program. And the reason the 20-year term is good for, and probably the reason you saw a lot of those bids is because these projects are estimated to be productive for at least 20 to 25 years. It's sort of the module warranty life is 20 years.
Those were the reasons really for my questions. Right now, we're looking at a 20-year lease, but the political climate with the tax credits where the federal or state could change.
Oh, and they are, yeah.
And that's the adjustment we're talking about.
Right, so if you can, and from the city's standpoint or from another net metering credit off-taker standpoint, it's an opportune time to get in now, because I'm guessing with the price of these things coming down, especially the cost of a solar panel, that the incentives are going to drop for the next round, if the state even does a next round of incentives for solar.
And this contract has nothing to do with our investments in Amoresco and anything like that. So this is, no, I think it's a great move by the city, the more I listen. And I just want to thank the mayor for the time and the gentleman for the time. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Kennedy?
Yeah, can I just ask, it was my understanding that you had one in Athol, one in Orange, and that you were building a third one in Brimfield. But
Correct.
The Athol and Orange were already done. That's wrong?
Oh, no, they're not done in terms of interconnected to the grid. They're done in terms of the net metering credits have been secured, and they're under construction, and they're fully financed. So there's absolutely no obstacle to those getting done. And those should be, we anticipate being done and interconnected in as indicated earlier, in April.
Okay, so done doesn't mean that it's all built and ready to go. Done just means that the financing's squared away.
And they're under construction, so we anticipate, there's a little bit of a lag. We actually have to deal with Verizon and National Grid to do their set of construction, which has already been paid for. But it takes them a little bit longer than us. It takes them 3 or 4 months to do the poles and the other things necessary to do their part, which is the primary delay on these. And then Brimfield, we also anticipate 2 projects in Brimfield being eligible for the public net metering queue, given we were in the queue pretty early on those also. So it could be an option for the city down the line to get more money, hopefully.
Okay, thank you. I I'd just like to say this about the 20-year forecast. Any 20-year forecast, I think, for the most part, after 5 years, it all gets a little fuzzy and shaky, and it's really hard to go beyond that with any type of certainty at all. So I think that, you know, what the manager has done here, I guess, is just made a decision that we're better off just locking in and taking that 3 cents, which right now, as Councilor Elliott pointed out, isn't the best, but in the long run, it should be the best, and in the long run, at least it's a constant that we can count on rather than having something fluctuate or getting less than what we're getting. So from that point of view, I think this is probably a good way to go. And I just would finally like to point out that we have a capacity to sell more of these, don't we?
Correct.
If somebody else came along. So we have that going for us too, as Bill Murray said in Caddyshack.
Right, we do, and, you know, as we go through that, perhaps we can set it up a little bit differently so that there's sort of a more, you know, maybe it would take a little risk, because we've got this certainty. It's like building a portfolio.
Right.
Councilor Martin?
I was going to say, so then if there's more opportunity, there's opportunity to hedge this,
That's correct.
right? Yeah.
Any further discussion? Councilman Donza?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like we're getting nothing now, and we get 240,000 a year. So it's an improvement in our revenues, not from the taxpayers.
Correct.
So I'll move approval.
Move for approval by Councilman Donza, second by Councilor Laurie. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Mendoza.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Thank you. Being 22 minutes after 7, we'll move to the public hearing portion of the agenda. We have first the ordinance, amend zoning for Bigelow Street and 161, 162 Swan Street for the suburban single-family zone. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Noon, second by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title. In City Council ordinance, an ordinance amending the code of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to Chapter 290 thereof entitled zoning, by establishing a new suburban single-family zoning district to include all parcels located in Lowell with frontage on Bigelow Street, as well as the entirety of 160.1 and 160.2 Swan Street in Lowell, a portion of which is presently zoned high-rise commercial. At this point, we'd open it up for those wishing to speak in favor. If you please, just state your name and address for the record.
I'm Ken Harkins. I live at 110 Bigelow Street, and I want to thank the Zoning Board of Appeals, Adam Back and his staff, and the City Council for working with us to get this problem resolved. We've been here numerous times on it, and we finally got everybody to come onto the same page, and we got it done. I'm in favor, and most of the people in the street are in favor of it, and we'd like to see it approved here by the City Council. And I would like to thank you, and I would like the mayor to hold his gavel while I say something else. I want to say thank you to the City of Lowell Water Department for coming out and fixing the leak. The main broke on our street. They came up in cold weather, fixed it, did a fantastic job. Please tell them thank you for us.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? In favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Move for approval by Councilor Laurie, second by Councilor Mercia. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Mendoza.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Thank you. Next, we have an ordinance amend zoning by amending various sections, medical marijuana treatment center. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Mercia. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. In City Council ordinance. An ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts by amending various sections. And open it up for those wishing to speak in favor.
Hi, Kirsten Doherty. I want to acknowledge the efforts of the Office of the City Manager, including the Police Department, Chief LaValle, the Health Department, Frank Singleton, the Planning Board, the efforts of the Assistant City Manager, Adam Bakey, and the support of the City Councilors, Duan, Lori, and Mercier, and others I may have failed to mention. As before, I presented a couple months ago. I work with the Massachusetts Prevention Alliance. I'm a Lowell resident. I've been a substance abuse prevention professional for a number of years, and I am the mother of a 7-year-old. I am pleased with the proactive stance of the city and its leadership to address the possibility of a dispensary in Lowell. Lowell is one of several communities taking early action on this issue. As you may know, Reading and Wakefield ordinances, bylaws call for a full ban, and they're currently being reviewed by the AG. I would have liked Lowell to consider the full ban and hope that if the Attorney General rules in favor of the outright ban, that Lowell will look at this as a possibility. I'm not sure, I haven't read the ordinance, or the draft ordinance in full, if it refers to playgrounds and parks as being a location that we would avoid in terms of place or citing the dispensary. Also, treatment facilities and recovery homes and sober housing would also be something I would take into consideration around keeping the medical marijuana dispensaries away from that. And I'm not sure also if the bylaw ordinance addresses personal cultivation, because as you may know, the Mass law does allow personal cultivation with the new Mass law without an ID card through the Department of Public Health. Physician recommendation is all that is required, and caregivers can also cultivate. So I'm not sure if it reflects that, but I think that that should be taken into consideration. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? In favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council?
Motion to approve. Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Council Lori, second by Council Noon. Councilman Donta.
I thought that the planning board had voted not to recommend this.
No, that's not true.
Well, they had some recommendations
Mr.
to be
Baker.
considered. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that they recommended was changing the 500 feet from a school to 1,000, which I had made a motion before we sent it to them to make that change. So I was surprised that in what they were considering, that wasn't included. I'm just trying to find the... Yeah, it says, the motion was from, on the planning board, was from Mr. Gendron, second by Mr. Frechette, second to recommend the zoning amendment not be enacted as proposed.
As proposed.
And the following adjustments, additional restriction. So they wanted to change it from regional retail and suburban mixed use, and make it light industrial and high-rise commercials. And also what I'd mentioned before about the school zone, and explore the creation of an overlay district to further restrict the located treatment centers, considering the character of regional retail and suburban mixed use. So they're recommending changes to the proposal. And so do we need to make amendments to take into consideration their recommendations? How do we proceed?
Madam Solicitor.
The changes actually were the distance issue should have been addressed. But some of these can be addressed this evening if the council wanted to go through some of the modifications that they presented, and also Mr. Bakey, I think, is prepared to speak on some of them as well.
Mr. Bakey.
Sure, yes. To answer your question broadly, and then we can get into the specifics of the planning board's recommendations. The planning board's role in this process is to make recommendations. The city council's role in this process is to determine if you agree or disagree with those recommendations and then adopt or reject the ordinance with or without amendments. That's entirely up to you. But the planning board obviously plays a significant advisory role, and it's, I think, important to pay attention to that and take a look at that, and obviously it's the council's judgment whether they agree. With respect to the individual things that the planning board recommended, certainly I also recall the motion that you made. The version of the ordinance that went to the planning board was the same version that went to you when you made that motion, which is why they also observed, very similarly to what you did, that perhaps increasing that to 1,000 feet instead of 500 feet would be consistent with the drug-free school zone rules, and you were correct in looking at that as 1,000 feet. So DPD would also support that change if that matters. The planning board's recommendation around switching whether the zoning district selected, as the current proposal has it in the, it's by special permit, of course, in every case, but in the regional retail and suburban mixed-use districts, and the planning board is recommending putting it in the light industrial and the HRC districts instead. And really, I think what that comes down to is a judgment call, and it's one that the staff committee that was looking at this also wrestled with, which is frankly trying to understand whether this use is really more of a retail use aimed at the consumer, in which case locating it in our retail areas that have other regulations that are appropriate to retail uses is the correct answer, or whether this is actually really more of an industrial use because of the requirement in the in the actual law that says that the main facilities have to actually grow it and manufacture it on site, which actually has a bit of an industrial production element of it. And we wrestled with that as well, ultimately coming down with the initial proposal to have it be focused on the retail use, because that appeared to be the area where the most potential impact on others beyond the facility might lie, and we felt it would be best aligned with our retail districts. However, I think the planning board has a legitimate point that there really is an industrial function to this as well, so it's ultimately, I think, up to the wisdom of the council which would be more appropriate. We did take the time to map both and make sure that the combination of the buffering from the schools and the selection of districts doesn't create a situation where you are effectively banning it outright, because the legal advice we have is that that it is unlikely to be, that the outright bans are unlikely to be upheld by the Attorney General and unlikely to ultimately be supportable. So we would, either option would be fine. Ultimately, it's to the council's discretion to determine whether you think an industrial approach or a retail approach is more correct. With respect to the planning board's recommendation about an overlay district, I must confess I truly don't understand what they're thinking about or recommending there, and I also don't understand exactly how, within what we're allowed to do with zoning, we would be able to implement that. So I can't really comment on what they're thinking about there. With respect to their final recommendation, which was to consider a locational restriction preventing facilities from being located within 500 feet of residential zoning districts, that becomes a greater challenge if we accept the legal advice that's been provided to us, because that would essentially, with any set of the zoning districts being considered for the special permit with this use, that combined with the other buffers and a 500-foot buffer from all residential districts would potentially effectively ban it in the city. So if that is something that we don't have the authority to do, that would throw the whole ordinance into question.
Councilman Dodson.
Yeah, I did have a question about what the overlay district would imply, so not being sure. If we are to consider this, I will make a motion that we amend the ordinance to include the first bullet recommendation and the third bullet recommendation from the planning board in the ordinance. That being the change from our 2 light industrial and high-rise from retail and suburban mixed use, and the third one is the make it 1,000 feet from a school instead of 500.
Motion to amend by Councilman Dunsa, second by Councilor Lori. on the motion.
Thank you,
Councilor
Mr.
Mercier.
Mayor. When we talk about the zoning amendments, we talk about the second one, the third one, which, in my opinion, I think if this vote was to pass, and it did pass to some degree when it went before the voters, I didn't vote for it. I didn't think we should have this in the city, but I was one of the minority, I guess, because it passed. And having said that, I feel since it passed, it should be under the domain of a hospital. That was my opinion. So that when I saw the restrictions and the limits and the recommendation and the approval of the planning board, I did see this third one, which said be located within or on the same lot as a licensed pharmacy. So to the maker of that amendment, are you saying that that one should not be there? Because that goes under what I believe that that would almost mean a hospital, because how many places within the city has a pharmacy? Pharmacies that are of themselves are in neighborhoods, but if you look at a hospital like Lowell General and you look around 500 feet, homes are probably further away than that. So are you saying to limit the others,
If I may,
Councilman Donza.
that is an exclusion, I believe, that you're referring to. That number 3 is under exclusion, so that it would not be, I think if you go up to the previous, that it not be located. If we could refer, Mr. Backey could probably respond to that.
Mr. Baker.
Regarding number 3 of the ordinance, what section is that prior?
That's
Go back one page. No. Well, let me just read it. In the ordinance itself, it's under 7.10.4, conditions. A medical marijuana treatment center shall not, and then number 3, be located within or on the same lot as a licensed pharmacy.
Well, I think it should be myself. That's my opinion, because I think it should come under hospitals. I think they should be administering this, not makeshift places that don't know what they're dealing with here. I don't know. That's
Councilor Martin.
Thank you. I think, the bigger picture here, I think, is that, these things are going to be allowed statewide, and we want to get some handle on regulating where they can be in the city, realizing that they can't be banned outright, and there needs to be some location where they're permitted. I can, I guess, appreciate the planning board's point, but without seeing more, I don't see why we would want these in the high-rise commercial district. So I don't agree with that recommendation, at least as to that district. Mr. Bakey, you said you mapped these, and so I don't support the amendment here. I'd be willing to delay this for a week and get a hold of that mapping so we can see where exactly these would be permitted. But otherwise, I would vote against the recommendations. Well, I'm okay with the 1,000 feet, but otherwise, I'm not going to support the amended motion based on what we have tonight.
I'll second. Oh, can you second that? No, you can't.
Any further discussion on the motion to amend?
Right.
Councilor Kennedy. So the amendment by Councilman Donza is to accept the planning board's recommendations to restrict the location of treatment centers by special permit in light industrial and high-rise commercial zoning districts rather than the regional retail and suburban mixed use, and also to extend the 500 feet to increase the dimensional condition relative to locating facilities from 500 feet to schools and public libraries to 1,000 feet.
Would Councilman Mendonça have any objection to dividing the question and maybe taking the 1,000 feet from the schools first? That
We can do two separate.
No objection.
Okay, so we'll divide the question. Council Leahy?
I was gonna ask through you, would Councilman Mendonça withdraw the motion so we could delay this for a week?
Councilman Mendonça?
We could vote on the amendments and still delay the final vote, if that's all right. We're separating them,
That's
two
fine.
amendments, and we could bring them back, I mean, if there's
So
a
the-
change of heart in a week.
So the first vote is on whether to restrict the location of the treatment centers by special permit in the light industrial and high-rise commercial zoning districts rather than the regional retail and suburban mixed use. Any further discussion on that? Councilor Noon.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the interdepartmental team for put this together, the rezoning. I think it make more sense, I concur with Councilor Mendonça, that it make more sense to put this in special permit in the light industrial was residential. If you're talking about restrictions from 500 to 1,000 feet from a school and or residential areas, because you're not going to find places for it. It make a lot more sense to agree to go with light industrial than retail, and I'm supporting the distance, really. I mean, if increasing from 500 feet to 1,000 from school zoned and public libraries and whatnot, this is a great thing because, it's going to happen. It's going to happen probably even sooner than we think. So that said, if we want to delay it, then, to have it incorporated in our ordinance, then be it. But I do support the recommendation of the planning board in terms of restrict location for a treatment center at this time. Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to remind everybody, I think the original legislation, the way it was, the requirement was that there would be one in every county, and that there could be no more than 5 in any county, at least to start off with. And if that's the case, I mean, Middlesex County is huge, and it could very well be that there are 5 other communities besides Lowell that would already have one, and so then Lowell wouldn't even be allowed, one wouldn't even be allowed in Lowell. But essentially what we're doing here, and I think Council Martin touched on it, is we're trying to say where they will go. You can't, it's almost like having an adult district, so that you can't say that you're not gonna have it anywhere because the Attorney General will throw it off. So you have to make a spot for them to be. And so that's kind of what we're determining here. But hospitals aren't a bad idea, except that the other hospital in Lowell is located right across the street from the Immaculate Conception, which is a school. And so,
But I'm thinking of Lowell General.
right,
It's up on a hill. Is that 500 feet or 1,000 from the school?
Councilor?
that's,
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
this is on the amendment for the 1,000
On the
feet?
First Amendment.
Okay.
Not on the 1,000, on the switch from towards the high-rise and light industrial.
Okay.
Mayor Murphy,
Yes.
Council Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilor Elliott,
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy,
Yes.
Councilor Leahy,
No.
Councilor Laurie,
Yes.
Councilor Martin,
No.
Councilor Mendonça,
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
No.
6 yeas, 3 nays.
Next, we have the motion by Councilman Mendonça to increase the dimensional condition relative to locating facilities from 500 feet to schools and public libraries to 1,000 feet. Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah. Could I just have a clarification of the previous vote?
You have,
We voted the amendment was to change
right.
to the industrial. Like, and we,
Correct.
and 6 voted for that.
Correct.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Any discussion on this amendment? Roll call, please.
Mayor Murphy,
Yes.
Counselor Norton.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Leahy.
Yes.
Counselor Laurie.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Madonza.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Thank you. Is the wish of the council to vote on this tonight or to delay for 1 week?
Delay.
I believe
Counselor.
Council Lori's motion is on the floor to approve. We amended Council Lori's motion to approve. is what we-
It was actually more of a substitute
Yeah.
because he changed it substantially. So the motion was to amend both times. Councilman Donza.
If it's the desire of other councilors, I'll make a motion to delay the final vote for 1 week.
Motion by Councilman Donza, seconded by Council Lori. Any discussion? All those in favor? Council Lori.
Before can we have those maps for next week, too?
That's the intent, yeah. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have an ordinance to amend the zoning for 228 Plain Street. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilman Donza, seconded by Council Mercia. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Reading by title in City Council ordinance. An ordinance amending the code of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts with respect to Chapter 290 thereof entitled Zoning by extending the existing regional retail zoning district to include the entirety of 228 Plain Street in Lowell, which is presently zoned traditional two-family. At this time, I'd open it up for those wishing to speak in favor. In favor? In favor, seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. I'd open it up for those wishing to speak in opposition. In opposition? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council? Council Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd also ask that this be delayed 1 week. You know, this initiated, the proponent of this is a neighbor of mine. I put him in touch with DPD. I think he's a little bit unfamiliar with this process. He didn't show up at the planning board hearing. He's not here tonight. I told him he should consider withdrawing this until he had a chance to meet with the neighbors. So I'd like to give him that opportunity, so he's not banned for 2 years. So I don't know if the council is willing to do that, but that would be the reason for the request for a delay in the vote.
Motion to delay by Council Martin, seconded by Council Kennedy. Any discussion? Council Leahy.
Thank you. Through you to the manager, could we just have a explanation on what's trying to go on here? Thank you.
So this amendment is the product of a private petition, as Councilor Martin alluded to. The owner of the property located at 228 Plain Street, which is adjacent to the VFW, for those who need a little orientation, it is a building that was built as a two-family residence, and it is zoned residential at this time. It's our understanding that he is interested, the owner is interested in being able to open a business in that building. So he is requesting that the city extend the zoning district that includes the VFW property as a retail zoning district to also include his property, basically extending it one additional parcel. And that would allow him to consider retail uses in the building. But that's basically as much as I know. Obviously, the petitioner should speak, should have the opportunity to speak for themselves.
So, can I just finish up?
Council Leahy.
Thank you. So I guess my question in this case is, where do you draw the line? I mean, you're on the edge of a neighborhood, you've got maybe 4 or 5 houses to the next corner. I wouldn't think this would be allowed because, I mean, what are you doing to your neighbors? Now you're stretching you should either take the whole block or none of it at all. So I don't understand, like, are we gonna get a recommendation from somebody on this, or it's up to us to?
Well, as with all zoning, it is ultimately up to you to make a decision whether.
Don't we have a zoning
Prove it
board?
or
I
not.
thought this was going to the zoning board.
Well, the zoning board is not involved in the process of enacting zoning. The zoning board is involved in the process of hearing for special permits and variances from the zoning, as well as appeals of the building commissioner. The zoning board doesn't really have a role in this process. The planning board does have a role in this process in that they make a recommendation to the council. And their recommendation on this one, which came in several weeks ago, was not to approve it.
Right. I mean, basically, you're destroying a neighborhood, so I don't understand why it's before us then, because it's special.
Well, it's required to come before you, ultimately, unless the petitioner withdraws, which
All
has
right.
not happened yet. It's required to come before you, and then ultimately the council can vote whether or not to approve it.
Okay.
Council Mercy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Earlier this evening, we had reports and recommendation on 2 issues that went before the, went to a public hearing, and we just accepted the communication, placed it on file, and it came under a public hearing. This is a little bit different because the planning board held a meeting, a public hearing on this very issue, November 19th, 2012. By that time, all of us probably would have forgotten about it. But I received a number of calls from people that are in opposition, one being a Patty Shanahan that lives on Peyton Street, right next door. And she said, please, I can't make it. I have another engagement. I can't come and speak in opposition. So if you want to delay it, I don't have a problem with that. But I'm going to bring you up to speed as to what took place. When that was held back in November, 4 people spoke in opposition. The petitioner didn't even speak in favor. What does that say for this request? Having said that, in all the items that were taken into account, the planning board voted 4-0 not to support this. So if we then supported it, we'd be going in opposition, contrary to what the planning board had suggested, and as well as the neighbors thereof. If you want to delay it, fine, but I'm going to say the same thing next week. Thank you.
Councilor Noon.
I share Councilor concern on this is because the encroachment is close, very, very close to the residential property. You know, if this was to be rezoned, a lot of things could happen. You know, what next? I mean, you know, if we allow this, and what next? It's gonna like a domino effect. So, yes, I do support postpone this to next week so that the petitioner can be here. But you know, from the look of it now, I really cannot support it because, you know, it's certainly a lot of unanswered questions about, you know, what's going to happen, what could happen after this. I mean, because other people is going to come and say, hey, we want to do the same. So, thank you.
Councilor Martin.
Again, this came as a constituent request. The man told me he had spoken to the neighbors. There was no opposition. Obviously, that's incorrect. Again, I think we're dealing with somebody who's just not familiar with the process, and he should be given the opportunity to withdraw if he can make peace with the neighbors and make explanation as to what he wants to do. Sometimes it's an enhancement to the neighborhood, even though it might be a commercial project. So I think it's premature to say things like it's ruining a neighborhood. And again, I'm not even saying that I would support this, but I think we should, for somebody who's, you know, kind of new to the process and new to the city, to give them an opportunity to withdraw. So I'll leave it at that.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. At this time, then, we'll take up the executive session. Executive session, to go into executive session for an update on the investigation into charges of criminal misconduct at the Lowell Water Department. We'd convene an open session, and then we'd come back here to finish the remainder of the meeting. So moved by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Noon. Roll call, please.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Council Noon.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Laurie.
Yes.
Council Martin.
Yes.
Council Mendonça.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
I don't have the flu.
You got it. Call the meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Counselor Noon.
Here.
Counselor Elliott.
Here.
Counselor Kennedy.
Here.
Counselor Leahy.
Here.
Counselor Laurie.
Here.
Counselor Martin.
Here.
Counselor Mendonça.
Here.
Counselor Mercia.
Here.
9 present.
Councilman Mendonça.
Yes, I'd like to motion to suspend the rules to take up an item out of order. There are some people here specifically for Council Elliott's motion, number 23, regarding apartment inspection fees.
Motion to suspend the rules by Councilman Mendonça, second by Councilor Mercia. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Motion by Councilor Elliott. Request the City Council discuss reducing apartment inspection fee to $50 per unit. Seconded by Councilor Laurie. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. It was some time ago that we adopted a new ordinance, an ordinance to have apartments inspected, and I supported it then. I think it was a good thing to do. And I know, so up till recently, people have started receiving letters that their apartments, their dwelling units have to be inspected. And there's a $50 charge each time, or for each unit. So, and I wanted to bring it forward because it's troubling to the people that own those units. I've heard not just one, but I've heard many complaints, quite frankly, people that own 3 units, 4 units, multiple units. And it is a burden, it is another burden, and I think we need to adjust it, Mr. Manager. I've been approached by people that they don't even rent some of their units. They're vacant, and they're still charged with it. A couple of people in Pawtuckaville, they have 3 tenements, and $150 to have this inspected is as I mentioned, it's a burden. And well, I believe it's a good practice. We need to inspect units that have been vacated and they're not up to code, or presumably they're not up to code, but I think we just have to take a look at it and reduce that fee, so it's it's not impacting them. In addition to all of they have water and sewer and trash and property taxes. I would like to take a look at it. Because if there are issues, then there are other processes that they have to go through. So that's the intent of the motion. There are some people here, I don't know if they're registered to speak, and if they're not, if they'd like to speak, I'd like to suspend the rules to allow them to speak. They may just be here to listen, but certainly I've received concerns from not only these people, but from others. So that's the intent of the motion, and thank you.
Councilor Laurie and then Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've received several calls also. The intent of the ordinance is good to have the apartments inspected. I guess it used to be you were supposed to have it done every time there was a change. We went to 3 years. The question the individuals have asked me, if they have a 6-family, well, it's $300 for about an hour's work. And, it isn't so much the $50, but if you have a lot of apartments, or if you have a lot on a street, maybe 10 or 12, you're looking at $600 for something that takes 2 hours. And, the cost, from what I'm hearing, is a little bit high. They don't mind paying the money. They agree they should be inspected. Matter of fact, many times it's going to help them, because if we do the inspection and they have to bring someone to court for, a security deposit, that's going to help them. The question is, if I have 8 apartments in a building, or if I have 3 buildings and they're all being done the same day, $400, $500, $600, $700 for a couple hours, that's the question. And thank you.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, too, received numerous calls. Not only numerous calls, but I went to Back Central Street on a Friday to get some fish, and the man went hysterically ballistic, and I didn't know whether to run out the door or pay him for the fish dinner.
I
but
got your fish.
oh my goodness, it was unbelievable. So I can understand their frustration. A particular gentleman called me, he owns 14 units, and it was $700. So I'm thinking, my God, he was another person that was very upset, and I can understand that, and I did vote for it as well, but I voted for it not realizing the impact that it would have on people that are trying to provide housing for people. And I think I read in Backtalk where if it's owner-occupied, then you don't have to pay for that inspection. But what if you own a 4-unit tenement and you live there as well, but you're not exempt like the owner-occupied? So what does it matter that a person has just one other unit and lives there, or has 3 other units and lives there? One can get exempt and the other one can't? Does the one that has the 3 units and lives there, is that any less valuable or less maintained than the single owner-occupied with the 2-family? So that has to be looked at again as well. I sense the frustration. I received the calls. It was unbelievable, and so I think we should revisit that. That's a very good motion, Mr. Manager, if we could revisit this and try to find another way of, we hire inspectors, that's their job, and on top of it, we're charging for a service, I know, but something is too steep here. It's too
Councilor Kennedy, and then Councilor Noon.
Is Councilor Mercy, are you finished?
Yes, I am finished.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think we should revisit this ordinance as well. Just a couple of things that I'd point out is when we took up the ordinance, you'll recall that we exempted owner-occupied 2 families. My understanding was that owner-occupied 3 families and 4 families, the charge would be $50 for the rental units. But I'm getting communications from people saying that, no, it's for all 4 units. So if you have an owner-occupied 3-unit building, you're paying $50 for every unit. I would think that you would pay $100, and that you wouldn't have to pay the $50 for the unit that the owner occupies. That should be different. I mean, the purpose here is really not supposed to be to generate revenue. The purpose is supposed to be to ensure the quality of rental units. And then the other thing that I had a conversation with a landlord that owns several dozen units in the city. And he was lamenting about the cost and how much it was going to be for him at $50 a unit. And I said to him, well, aren't you able to write it off at the end of the year? And his response was, well, yeah, if you can get the money. But then he described to me this process, that you would pay $50 to have all of your units inspected. If some of your units had code violations, then you would have to take care of those code violations. And when you do that, you have to use licensed people to do that. So that means, and you need permits. So you have to have permits, and you have to then pay for the permits to do the work to bring the properties up to code. Because you've pulled permits, that triggers the Board of Assessors to come out and reassess your property. So you're not just getting the $50, it's the $50 for the inspection, plus paying for the permits and any code violations, and then the whole thing might end up with an increase in your assessment, which is just a lot of money for people, I think, to have to pay. And so I think the whole, I don't object so much to the $50 for non-owner occupied units, but the monies that would have to be put out after that, some consideration has to be given to that, I think. And so I think that maybe we would be better off if we just took a closer and thoughtful look at this ordinance and the ramifications of this ordinance. A lot of these properties, you have landlords who are struggling to maintain them. We would be in a bad situation if it got to a point where landlords just threw up their hands and walked away. So I think we want to try to provide a balance where we're going to do the goal of keeping the ordinances, the goal of keeping the units in good shape is realized, but not at the point of just milking everybody dry or bleeding people dry for in terms of costs.
Councilor Noonan and then the manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I think the ordinance, I think we did have an ordinance before. The issue we have is enforcement of it. And with this ordinance, it changed from 1 year to 3 years, every 3 years. I think the ordinance is also clear that is if you two-family owner occupy, you'll be exempt from it. If 3, 4, and up, I mean the third and the fourth, the fifth one, I guess that's where you have to pay. I'd be more than happy. I mean, I'd be glad to support a revisit of the fee itself. But I think the ordinance is clear, and the ordinance, I mean, of course, when you go to property, the idea is to have a landlord take care of their property. And if the property is not being kept well enough, then what's going to happen is that it's going to, really, the owner, when the inspection takes place, then the owner will be told what to do in terms of where to fix. I'm not so sure that if it's a minor doorknob change, that you need to have a licensed individual to do that. Maybe it's major things that where you need to have a licensed person to do so. I'm comfortable with the ordinance. However, the fee, I think the fee need to be adjusted. I do concur with, Councilor Elliott that we need to revisit the fee itself. And the ordinance also spoke to that if you have 4 families and if it rent to a Section 8 housing being inspected yearly by CTI and or Lowell Housing Authority, that you have to provide a paper or receipt of that, that property being inspected yearly by one of those agencies, and with that you'll be exempt from, any cost or any further inspection. The not so clear is this, that that people don't understand what section of Lowell we are starting. I know that the initial corresponding from the city was to say, look, we have an ordinance, a new ordinance, and that come into effect in a few months ago, and then subsequently some people did receive the second wave of corresponding, which indicated that you have to pay this fee, and we will then schedule an inspection. So I think we need to do more, a better broadcasting in terms of what area we do in the inspection first, so that the people at home will understand, or at least waiting for, when's going to be their turn. With that said, thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Manager.
We'll be happy to take a look at this. I do agree with Councilor Kennedy, I think, who mentioned the 4, or maybe it was Councilor Laurie, the 4 units, and you shouldn't have to pay for all 4. You should just pay for the 3. I think that seems to make sense to me. From an economic standpoint, these are health inspectors going out, first off. They're not building inspectors, so they're not picking up on building code violations, they're picking up on health code. Now, that might end up triggering some building code violations, and that's our goal. If a landlord is not keeping up their property, if they kept up their property, they wouldn't have that problem. And that's something that I think certainly benefits the city to have these picked up, because we do have landlords, unfortunately, in the city that don't maintain their properties properly, and that has an impact upon the neighborhoods. It has an impact certainly upon the tenants. From an economic standpoint, it isn't just more money coming in. We use this money to offset the taxpayers who don't own these properties. For, you know, the cost is paid by the people who own the properties and profit from the properties, as opposed to the taxpayers underwriting these inspections. From a financial standpoint, we're talking essentially it's a 3-year as opposed to every year, or whenever there's a vacancy. That was $30 whenever there was a vacancy. We did find that people weren't complying, that they weren't notifying us, or if someone did notify us, they were paying $30 each time, which over the span of 3 years, if they get 3 different tenants, they're spending $90, as opposed to the $50 that lasts for the full 3 years. And at $50, if you think about it, it comes out to $1.38 per month on someone's rent. I bet the tenants would be willing to pay an extra $1.38 a month if they wanted to increase their rents to make sure that the units that they were living in were healthy and safe. And the converse of that is, I don't think $1.38 a month is that much for a landlord to pay to make sure that their tenants are in proper units and they can advertise their units as being properly certified by the city. That said, if the council asks us to go back and do some work on this, we'll go back and give you a full picture of the ramifications.
Councilman Mendonça, then Councilor Leahy Kennedy.
I understand that we were doing this because there were many landlords, we suspect, that were turning over their apartments and not calling for an inspection. And we wanted to make sure that we caught those and to benefit the tenants that were going to be residing in our city. But the way the process has been going, they chose streets alphabetically. And I'm wondering if we could give some people credit if they had a unit inspected and within the last 3 years that they don't require. I mean, if they had it inspected last year, they did what they were supposed to. They called the city, they had the inspection done, and now, because alphabetically they fall on this cycle, that they're being asked to inspect it again. I think that we should look into at least those people, and those landlords that were doing the right thing, give them the 3 years credit from when they last had it inspected, and don't require them within a year, say, to have it re-inspected. I'm glad to hear that you're considering the owner-occupied. I never imagined that the owner-occupied unit would require an inspection. It's the ones that are tenant-occupied that might require inspection. The other thing to consider is basically we charge a fee in order to cover the cost of the service, is what it's supposed to be. Part of the ordinance has that for large complexes that they be sampled. And if the sampled units pass, then there's no need to inspect the others. And that sampling reduces the amount of work and maybe a way of, in the case of large units, to reduce the economic cost by saying $50 for the first unit and then so much for each sampled unit, or however much that should be considered so that large units, especially if they're in compliance to begin with, that it doesn't become a big economic impact for those. And in light of the fact that we are doing the sampling, therefore less work needs to be done, maybe less effort on the part of the inspector. So if it's commensurate, we should consider that. Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
We can take a look at that. Certainly that, I'm not quite sure in shorthand how to put it, but the sort of the large units where we're sort of decrease, and maybe there's a way to adjust that. Of course, we have had a number of people who have gone through this and paid the $50 already. And we've gotten, as you can imagine, we've gotten some complaints. But for the most part, most people have I won't say happily, have understood and come forward. On the proration portion, what we've done with anyone that's had a unit inspected over the last number of years, and I apologize, I don't know exactly how far back we've gone with that, but I think we've gone back the full 3 years. What we've done is we've inspected it, but we've extended. They don't just get 3 years, they get a little bit more. So that someone that gets their unit inspected now, if they had their unit inspected a year ago, they will actually get time added on to this certificate of inspection for the $50, so they don't get hit essentially with paying $30 last year, $50 this year, and have to come back for $80. That's the way it's been explained to me, the way we've handled that.
Okay, just in the interest of disclosure, I own rental property, so I've received the letter, and the letter itself doesn't say anything about that, so I could understand that the people receiving the letters are just saying, I gotta pay so much per unit, and I just had it in at least some of the units inspected just months ago. And I'm now being asked to pay again because I'm in A through F, which is the first cycle. Okay, thank you.
Council Leahy, and then Council Kennedy.
Thank you. I was just going to say that, I was just going to add that I thought when we passed the ordinance, it was a good thing. I understand there's a little bit of pain in the beginning, but it does spread out over 3 years. And as you said, it's for the benefit of the tenant. So I'd be willing to take a look at it, but, you know, I think originally we came out with a good proposal here, and we'll see where it goes. But, you know, this really does benefit the tenants in the long run. Thank you.
Council Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree, $1.40 or $18, $17 or $18 a year, that's not that bad. So I'm not really complaining about the $50. I do think that if we can adjust the ordinance so that owner-occupied units we're not getting $50 for those, that's a good thing and is more in keeping with the intent of the ordinance. My other remarks were really directed at what happens afterwards and what are those costs. And so maybe we could take a look at maybe capping those costs. If someone's got a lot of units and they end up needing a lot of work, then instead of just like pounding them, if we could cap those at some point, you know, for what you need for permits or that type of thing, then I think that's worth taking a look at too. And the majority of my remarks were aimed at that and doing that. But I agree. I don't think the $50 is excessive. I think when you break it down, it doesn't end up being all that much. And just once again, if we can exempt the owner-occupied, that's a good thing.
Council Elliott, and then Lori.
The people that have come up to me, and I was in a different section of the city than Council Mercia. I went into a business, and the business owners, both of the owners were there, and they were upset. And is it the 50? I think it's the 50 on top of the trash, on top of the water, on top of the sewer increases, on top of the property taxes, on top of their expenses as well, their cost to maintain the property. So to some degree, it is the cost to them, and it's not just business. And it seems like the people that keep their property in nice condition and they have good tenants, we don't want this to shift the cost to the tenants either. Rents are high enough. So I do think it's a cost issue. Maybe it's only $1.38, but I mean if you break down every other fee that property owners are responsible for, it adds up. It adds up, and I think that's where they're coming from, because people come up to me, when does it end? How much? What's the next fee? What's the next permit? With that being said, I think it is a very good idea that we have this ordinance, because there are a number of, all you have to do is walk around certain sections of the city and you can see the units are substandard and they shouldn't be inhabited, never mind, certainly they need to be inspected. So the ordinance is a good thing. It's the cost and how we have to be cognizant of people. Mr. Manager indicated people called to complain. I think it's a big issue, and I think people want and deserve some relief.
Council Lori and Council Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it does protect the tenant. It's $50. My concern was the bulk units, and as you said, 10, 12 units, you're paying $500, $600 for an hour's work, and that was the complaint I was hearing. And But as far as the 50 for just a few units in 3 years, I haven't heard that too much. But again, it is one more cost of doing business. One thing we do have to remember, if a unit is subsidized, we don't charge the $50. We get those reports from whatever agency is. So the apartment owners won't have to pay for that. That's just something we'll receive from those companies, and those fees will be basically waived. Thank you.
Council Martin.
Thank you. I did have a couple of inquiries on this, too. One is on the owner-occupied unit, so if we want to look at that. The second is what's treated as a complex for purpose of sampling. You know, I have one constituent who called me who's got maybe 20 or more units on the same street, yet, you know, they're not in one building. You know, and by any definition would be treated as a complex. They share parking and all that, but assessment-wise, they probably have 7 or 8 different addresses there. So are those going to be treated, you know, as a complex where you'd only check a few of them, or do you check them all? And so some of these definition type things, I think, need a look as well.
Council Leahy. Any further discussion? Council Kennedy. You refer to the housing subcommittee if you like. Motion by Council Kennedy, seconded by Council Laurie, to refer the fees and the rest of the discussion to the housing subcommittee. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have an order, dedicate the community park and garden on Whiting Street in honor of Wilfred Lavasser, founder of Cody's Market. Motion to waive the full reading by Council Mendonça, seconded by Council Laurie. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. In City Council order, dedicate the community park and garden on Whiting Street in the city of Lowell in honor of Wilfred Lavasser, founder of Cody's Market.
Move approval.
Move for approval by Council Mercia, seconded by Council Laurie. Roll call, please.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counsel Nawad.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Leahy.
Yes.
Counselor Laurie.
Yeah.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Mendonça.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Next, we have reports, subcommittee reports. The Finance Subcommittee of February 5th. Council Mendonça.
Yes, the Finance Subcommittee met this evening in regards to a motion by Councilor Kennedy that we get an update on the health fund surplus in our health fund trust fund since we switched to the group insurance commission plan. Now we just have to finish paying what claims are left in the system, and once we know how much is left, we can proceed. Present were myself and member Councilor Elliott, along with member Councilor Martin. Also present were Councilor Leahy, Councilor Mercer, Mayor Murphy, and Councilor Noon, along with city officials, the city manager, CFO Tom Moses, along with our auditor Cheryl Wright. We were told that currently the fund is projected to have 7.3 million, but only 75% of that goes to the city. The other 25% belongs to the employees that contributed 25% of the cost of the healthcare. Also, the 75% is calculated at the moment to be 5.4 million that will be available to the city once we can close out the trust fund. We had discussion on the healthcare and how this came to be, and the recommendation as to how we might use these funds, or some thoughts and options on it. And one of the things we will need to fund going forward is what's called other post-employment benefits. And that basically is retirees' health insurance again, that the city has to cover 75% and the retired employee covers the 25%. But the city has this liability while these employees are retired. And right now, the last actuarial study that was done set the city's liability at $680 million going out into the future. And one of the things that we'll eventually have to do is we'll have to fund that liability. The state and several other communities have already started to do that. It's probably just a matter of time before we are required to do that by law. So having these funds, it may be wise to, when they are sure what the amount is that it's available, to transfer the funds into a trust fund that we just created. Doesn't have any money in it yet for this purpose. So that was part of the discussion. However, it may still be a little early to make the recommendation. So the subcommittee just decided to recess until early April, when we should have a better idea of exactly how much money is going to be left in the fund, to decide then and make a recommendation on what to do with it. That is a report of progress. Either Mr. Martin or Mr. Elliott may want to comment further if they would like to add to the report. Otherwise, this is a report of progress.
Any further discussion? Entertain a motion to accept and place on file. So moved by Council Noon, seconded by Council Mercier. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have general petitions. One claim for personal injury. Entertain a motion to refer to the Law Department for report and recommendation. So moved by Council Laurie, seconded by Council Mendonça. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have motions. Council Laurie requests the city manager prepare a report for the council regarding estimated costs and preparedness plan for 2 primary and general upcoming Senate special elections. Seconded by Council Kennedy. Council Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're going to be having, I think, we know we're going to have a primary in, I think, April, and then a final election in June. We're not going to get any help from the state. We're going to be paying for these elections, and they could be quite costly. Where the money would be coming from, how we're going to get the money. And the other idea is the preparedness. After the last presidential election, we talked about possibly closing schools, moving some polling places. Maybe it'd be an idea to really look at that now coming up. I think everyone's saying that they're not going to be well attended. I think both of these really have the possibility of having a good turnout. So I think it would be a good look at what we're going to be doing in the future. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have Council Laurie requests city manager have proper department explore possibility of creating educational training classes and/or videos for permitting and code ordinances to Lowell homeowners. Seconded by Council Leahy. Council Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This week, or last week, I had to pull permits doing some work in my house, and I didn't know how the process goes. Basically, if you cut wallboard now, or you have to get a permit. I was putting up just a couple of 4-foot walls and a wall to put some books on, and I had to pull a permit. And, you know, looking back, I thought, even if we did something with low cable TV or just something to get the word out, there's YouTube today, there's videos. If you're going to do some work in your house, what's the process you want to go to, and go from there. Thank you.
Council Leahy.
Thank you. Through you to the manager, do you know, is that on our website? That should just be on the website, right? If you click to that department, it should tell you what you need a permit for and what you don't.
We have increased the amount of information on that website. Whether it includes that information or not, I'm not sure. But we can look at that. But I think that certainly anything we can do to get more information out, whether it be the website or videos or something of that
Once you
sort.
get into electrical, you're going to have to get electrical. I have a plumber. I'm putting in a bathroom in the basement. So there's actually quite a bit that goes along with it. But you have to do drawings. It's not just pulling permits. Right. You have to do drawings now and everything else. So if we don't have it with YouTube and everything else, I figure it's...
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very important motion in that it's informative to the public. Do you have to pull a permit to get a new driveway? And some time ago, we had these questions, and the Inspectional Service Department put together a nice brochure as to what qualifies to pull a permit, what you don't really need to pull a permit for. I know that I had kitchen work done, and I called to pull a permit, and they said I didn't need one because I was just replacing cabinet. So at what extent do you have to, now, here's a misconception. I don't know if this is true. If you have your home sided, you have to pull a permit. But if you do it yourself, do you still need to do a permit because you're not in that business? So I don't know. So this is an important motion in that information to the public is important. If you're putting on a set of new stairs, do you need to pull a permit? Things that you need to pull a permit for, and things that people are afraid to paint their house. I think they think if they beautify their property by painting the house, their taxes will go up, they have to pull a permit. I don't think you have to if you paint a house. So these are things that we should know, and yes, as Councilor Leahy said, it should be probably on that website under inspectional services. Things you need to pull a permit for, things that you can do without pulling a permit. We had something years ago, so that's a good thing. And to go a step further and say that we could make a video on it and put it on LTC, that probably would be good too. So there's many possibilities to alert the public. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Laurie. Request the city manager set up training seminar or program for all new board members. Seconded by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since I've been on the council, we're just bringing on a lot of new board members. And I know when I was elected to the city council, the manager set up a program where I could go to the law department and go to the different offices. But a lot of the people coming on the boards, they're giving their time. If we could set up some type of training seminar, maybe through the law department, maybe, or what type of board you're going on, whether it's planning, whether it's conservation, just a little bit about what you'll be doing, what your responsibilities are, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Kennedy. Request city manager appoint 3 members to the City of Lowell Auditorium Commission as soon as possible. Second by Councilor Laurie. Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I begin, let me just say that, just as a matter of housekeeping, although the motion reads Lowell Auditorium Commission, according to the legislation from 1983, it should be the Lowell Auditorium Board of Trustees, or trustees. And so the website that we have calls it a commission, and it should call it trustees. Also, the website that we have, when I looked at it last week at least, had listed only 2 members, so that even the people who were holdover members, they're not listed. Now, I don't know if they've been removed. I guess I would think that they would be in holdover status at least till they're reappointed or replaced. But the gist of this motion is to appoint these members as soon as possible, because we're considering a management contract at the auditorium. So I would think this would be given top priority. I don't know if some of the holdovers wish to be on. I know that we've just appointed 2 new members. I guess I would think that it would be prudent to have some experience on that board. But I also think this is an important board, and so it should be it should have 5 members. I don't know who the 5th one was, and whether the 5th one's just a vacancy or what the situation is, but you know, the city's website in general is kind of messed up in a lot of areas, but this is one. And if you go to where boards and commissions are on the website, it will say that it was updated, I think, in January 2013. And my recollection is that when I looked at that website previously, those holdover members were on there, which means that there was, someone deliberately took them off for whatever reason. What is the, what's the story with those other two members? Are they still on, and when can we expect the appointments to the board?
They are still on. I think there's been a changeover, I believe, in the clerk's office with how they are managing that, that part of the website, and which the way they're doing it now is very helpful to us in tracking people whose terms have run out. My thanks to the clerk for doing that, because that was one of the problems we were having before. But one of the results, too, is it takes people off when their terms have run off, and that needs to be addressed in some way, so we'll be working on that. And I am hoping to get some, I've been talking to several people that are expressed an interest. I did have that individual that I just put on. He was highly qualified, and I felt that he was a good appointment, and I appreciate the council supporting that. So hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to get that up to speed.
Are you having trouble with the pool of candidates for these positions? Do you not have enough candidates to consider for them? I mean, is that the problem?
I get candidates, but I don't get as many as I did a few years back, that for a variety of reasons, I think. But I reach out and talk to people and ask for people to give me names, and I track them down. I also get people that contact us and express an interest in serving. You know, we did go through sort of a chill in a number of resumes that we were getting at a various point in time when that sort of became a controversy. But it's picking up again. I've in the last couple of months, 2 or 3 months, I've received a number of applications, not necessarily for the auditorium, but for other positions. So
there are other communities that have it right on their website. When there's vacancies, there'll be a section on their website where they'll say, you know, we're looking for 3 members or 1 member for the Board of Trustees for the auditorium, you know, so many for the Conservation Commission, and so forth and so on. Mm-hmm. And I think we've talked about this before, but we don't do that, do we?
We have done that in the past.
But I mean, we don't maintain that. I mean, we have everything else on that website, but we don't maintain that on a regular basis. And I suppose part of doing it is you have to make sure that it's up to date. And if the list isn't up to date, then why should we expect that the list of vacancies would be up to date? But that might be another idea. I just am trying to find out why these people haven't, either the holdovers haven't been reappointed, or why, you know, and why we have a vacancy on there. Do you know why?
I haven't found anyone to fill the vacancy yet, and I've been contemplating what to do about the reappointments, and I've got my mind pretty much made up on what I'm going to be doing, but I haven't been able to finalize that yet.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Kennedy. Request the city manager request the advice and recommendation of the City of Lowell Auditorium Board of Trustees regarding the RFP for the proposed management contract. Second by Councilor Kennedy. Excuse me, Elliott. Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this motion is that I think that there should be some input from the auditorium trustees in evaluating the contract that we're under. I'm bothered by the fact that there's just one proposal, that when we went through the RFP process, that we ended up just with one. But nevertheless, I do think that since the proposal is for either a 5-year or 5-year contract with a 3-year extension, a potential of 8 years, and given that the Auditorium Board of Trustees are going to be working closely with the management team for the auditorium, that it makes sense to have them involved in the selection process. You know, what I read in the paper is that there's going to be an evaluation team looking at the RFP, and that evaluation team consists basically of people who work in the city manager's office and a member of the Board of Trustees to be named later. which certainly doesn't give much priority or importance to the Board of Trustees, who have in the past, and for the past couple of decades, taken the lead on that auditorium, and who have played a large part in turning it around from what it was 25 or 30 years ago, so that it is one of the jewels of the city. And my understanding is that one of the bones of contention, or one issue, is whether or not the city will continue to subsidize. And I think that part of the consideration that has to be given is that a lot of events that go on there are community events. So they're community events for the community, and so the community subsidizes them. So the subsidy doesn't bother me all that much, and I think that it's been significantly reduced. But nevertheless, the purpose of the motion is just to have the Board of Trustees be involved in the evaluation process. I was a little bit concerned because I asked for a copy of the global proposal. And I was told that I couldn't have a copy of the global proposal because the evaluation hadn't been done, and that it was confidential up until that time. Now, there's only one proposal. And when I was told I couldn't have it, what was cited was 30B. The intent of 30B really is so that there would be no collusion or cheating. That's why the proposals would remain confidential. If there is just one proposal on the table, and that's it, and nothing else to be evaluated, then the spirit of 30B really doesn't hold. If the evaluation team, if employees of the city, some of whom live in the city and some of whom don't, are going to be looking at the proposal tomorrow, and they're going to be privy to that proposal, I don't understand why members of the city council can't be privy to that proposal, and why they can't evaluate the proposal independently for themselves.
Mr. Manager.
Again, we're just following Chapter 30B here, and I think even though there's only one proposal, it may be the determination of the evaluation committee that the global proposal doesn't meet the requirements, and that will allow us then to go to do something different, or I think there's a variety of options here, but I think that the other part of that proposal is there has to be assuming that it does meet the minimum criteria. In the evaluation process of the proposal itself, 30B requires it be broken into price and non-price. The evaluation team is only looking at the non-price. So once that's done, they can't be tilted one way or the other on what the price portion is. So we can't have that out there, any of that information out there, until we go through the whole process. Then once they determine that it's an appropriate proposal, then we will begin the process of trying to negotiate the financial terms of this agreement. And they can, and that's going to require some time as well. It's not unlike what we've done with any number of other proposals that we've had, including a perfect example of it actually is the LaLasha Park lease was done the same way.
I can understand if there's multiple proposals, but when there's one proposal on the table, then I just don't see it. However, the other thing that 30B does say is that what will be provided immediately is a registrar that will have the name of the proposer and any modifications to the RFP. And that is public, and that should be available. I would bet that has not been prepared yet because there's only one proposal. But that's required under 30B as well.
Council Lowell and
So
then Council.
when can we get a copy of that?
I'll check with Mr. Vaughn tomorrow and see when we can get that out to you.
We should have it right forthwith because he should have done it on the day that the proposals were open.
He may have.
Council Lowell and then Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a lot of questions with this, too. I'm hearing a lot that there was only one proposal. The last time, how many were there?
One.
And the time before that?
I believe just one.
Yeah. They did a great job with Mill City, and I'm sure no one really competed. They had it down to a science. They really did. They did a tremendous job running that. But this idea that there's only one proposal, for years, the silence has been deafening. And all of a sudden, and what I'm afraid of, and I'll be quite honest, there's a lot of publicity out there to get rid of Globe to come local. Why? You know, the only name I hear is one or two names. Are we being kind of nudged into a certain situation here? I've been against 30B since I've come on the council. I put a motion in last year to try to get a home rule, and weeks ago, I put a motion in that was fully supported. I know State Rep Golden is down in Boston trying to get that reviewed right now with, I believe, the whole delegation. I'm very concerned of Globe coming in. They have absolutely nothing in the city. They've run the arena, and, you know, you can only have one master. Are they going to be working for the university as opposed to the auditorium? And I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about who's going to get the concessions. I'd like to see it really opened up to local businesses. And on top of all of this, we have people employed there who've worked for Mill City for years. What happens to them? You know, I'm very concerned about what happens to the employees. If we don't accept the RFP, would we look at running it ourselves, bringing someone in? We have a commission over there. We have the board of trustees, or the board of the commissioners. They've been doing a fine job for years. I concur with Councilor Elliott. They've done a great job. If we had a city employee, or we brought someone in, not to, you know, basically to run it and use it almost as an enterprise fund. You know, do we look at it that way? We have to maintain that building. And the more money we make from the shows, we can put into that building to maintain it. You know, I'm leaning in that direction now. And I'm not saying if the proposal isn't legal and, you know, that's fine, but I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions about an outside company coming in, who they're going to work for. I'm not saying they won't do their best. They probably will. I'm sure they will do their best. But these are just things running through my mind. And then at the end of the day, are we better off to try to run it ourselves, or have someone come in who actually knows how to run it? The concession, staying local. But those were just my thoughts as we go along. You know, thank you.
Mr. Manager.
I think it's important that we continue on through the process. I mean, all these things will become more clear once we get through it. And then, you know, we'll make a decision as to whether to bring a proposal to the council or not. And if we do, we'll have the arguments for it, and hopefully we'll be able to address any issues that people have. And if we don't, then that becomes moot, and we head in a different direction.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. Some weeks ago, when you brought forth a name for a person to serve on the, as a trustee to the Board of Trustees to the auditorium, I segued in and questioned the contract that was going out, request for proposal, and I asked you if this was structured to just circle in on one particular bidder, and you said, no, actually, there are 3 bidders. But actually, my prediction more or less came true, because this is the bid that got it. Be that as it may, if you're a city councilor, our goal is to represent the people, represent the city. If you are a school committee person, you focus on education and those students. They try to get as much money for the school side as you possibly could. Having said that, if you are a chancellor of a university, of course you're going to look for the best interests of what you oversee. Keeping that in mind, and I did reiterate, I'm reiterating again on what I said to your, master plan for the city, and that was a subcommittee. I'm saying the same thing now, because I don't want things to happen and people say, gee, I never gave that a thought. Nobody told us about that. So I'm going to say something that I'm troubled by, and I hope that I'm wrong, but I'm going to say it anyway, because I have to bring what I'm feeling out. When you have a Tsongas Arena, and it was marketed tremendously, and we got 1.5 million off the backs of the taxpayers, that's all well and good. But I thought that the word spin-off was attributed to the overall well-being of a city. And when you look at the Tsongas Arena and the different pockets of restaurants all within that facility, you could come in from Haverhill or wherever, Boston, and never have to leave, because all those little pockets of restaurants sponsored by this bank or that bank or that bank is generating money for that entity, and that's good. And it's managed by the same company that will probably get the auditorium bid. I don't know, but let's say that that same application applies to the Lowell Memorial Auditorium, and say that they have another spin-off that says, get your tickets and a dinner, and the dinner's going to be at the Inn and Conference Center. How does that affect any of our restaurants in the downtown? Maybe this will never happen, but I have to look beyond what we're seeing in front of us and take a step out. What if? So I don't know what that's all about. I'm sure whoever gets the bid, is this person gets that bid, are they going to take little pockets and put little restaurants or little places there to generate a new atmosphere? The reason I say this is because way back when it came time for the Inn and Conference Center and the restaurant being there, we were told that this restaurant would service the students in that facility. And I said, wow, that's a great idea. They don't pay any personal property, they don't pay any taxes, but yet they advertised around Thanksgiving and said, come and get a Thanksgiving dinner with your family. So they're advertising for the general population. How does that affect the downtown restaurants? I don't want in 5 or 7 years from now that these restaurants that are trying to function in the downtown can't compete with the likes of people coming in, going to the Tsongas Arena, people coming in, going to the auditorium and not having to leave. What we have right now is a management company that puts on a tremendous show that allows people to come into the city and go out into the downtown or whatever and get a good meal and go enjoy entertainment. I don't want to be led a bill of goods such as the Inn and Conference Center that we're just servicing our students, but now they're going out into the community, taking business away from the downtown restaurants. I don't want that to happen at the Lowell Memorial Auditorium. I want people to be able to go out and patronize all these nice restaurants that we have and not be a monopoly unto themselves. If you can follow my thinking, I hope that isn't going to happen, because I don't want to hear that this restaurant's going out. They can't compete with that, the likes of that, the power of that monopoly. I don't want to create a monopoly. I don't want to create a monopoly that says, pay the price for your graduation. Drake pays it. Other places pay it. These are our own people. This is our Lowellians that pay a tax. They should get a break more than some outside people coming in. These are our own people, and I don't want this attitude, well, we're going up on, not on the fee, but on the, you want a microphone? That's going to cost you extra. You want security? That's going to cost you extra. Don't hurt us. And that's what's happening. Are we going to save $360,000 a year? But in the meantime, our Lowellians that want to have a recital there, want to have a graduation there, we can't hurt ourselves. And I hope you can understand where I'm coming from. I don't want to hurt anybody, but we have to look out for the people that we service. And I hope you can understand where I'm coming from. We don't know that, but I want to be assured that this isn't going to happen.
Mr. Manager.
Well, clearly, Counselor, what we're trying to do is what's good for the entire city. You know, everything that we talk about is for the entire city, all of the people of the city of Lowell. And, you know, with the, you know, talking about the arena, I mean, that used to cost us $1 million a year because it simply wasn't run the right way. And I don't know if it can ever go to zero. I don't know what their financials are over there. But I know what you're referencing about, you know, renting a microphone and everything else. We saved $1 million that benefit the citizens of Lowell, the taxpayers of the city of Lowell. And does that mean that when people have an event there, they might pay a little bit more now? Yes. But that freed up $1 million to put into many of our services here. I can't tell you what's going to happen with the auditorium, but again, I would like to see us eliminate that subsidy. I would like to see the taxpayers not have to pay that. And, you know, but I definitely want to have it continue to be a civic building. I definitely want it to be a community building. And I definitely want it to be the type of venue that attracts the top performances, the top shows that are going to bring people into the city of Lowell that will go to the restaurants. And I hope they stay at the Inn and Conference Center because we get a rooms tax from that. We get money from that. And, you know, if they eat at the Inn and Conference Center, so be it. We get meals tax from that. I myself, whenever I stay at a hotel, I very rarely eat at that hotel. I usually go off and find a restaurant nearby. So I think that's what's going to happen in that case, too. But you know, I think the more we can get that auditorium up and going, I think Mill City Management did a good job of, you know, taking it from where it was 25 years ago and moving it up. But our goal in getting this out there was to get the best possible bidders. As to whether it was designed, this RFP was designed for one bidder, I heard that from people. But I didn't hear, I heard that it was one company that it was designed for, and I also, from outside people, heard that it was designed for someone else. And the reality is, it was a wide range. Anybody could put together any type of proposal. Management fee, license, lease payment, you know, they could put together whatever they wanted to, but whatever is in the best interest of the taxpayers is what we're going to come in with.
Well, I would suggest that we talk to the chancellor and see if he could help our own people in lieu of taxes to give our Lowellians a break when they're having a graduation at the Songus Arena.
Councilor Noon and then Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mayor. I do appreciate, Mr. Manager, that you are looking to no longer subsidize the operation of the auditorium. I know that in the past we have subsidized the auditorium in between $320,000 or in some year even more. Certainly this new request for proposal going to save taxpayer that much, if not more. I understand that it's only one request for proposal. That may be because one of the biggest reasons that the city no longer put up that money, no longer subsidized the operation of the auditorium, and that's probably, stop people from, or other from putting their request for proposal. We are here, with only one proposal, that is the global spectrum. The question is, do we, go ahead with the process? And if we do, I would say that I would urge you to include and involve the auditorium board of trustee in the evaluation process. And that evaluation process should also take into account the, the fee for nonprofit organization. And if possible, it's not monopolized, that certain food service can only be contract with, so to speak, because certainly it's going to affect, the others, food service, other restaurants in the city that, really hurting at this time. That said, I also concerned that if if we choose to go back and start this process is over, I'm worried that maybe we don't even have that one request for proposal. Maybe we end up operate the arena ourselves. Maybe we then continue to subsidize the arena, and taxpayer will have to take care of that. So there's a lot of maybe, but whatever, if we choose to go forward in the process, that, I hope that the global spectrum, the request, the individual, the one request for proposal now, take, has the interest sort of the city at heart, because certainly they are, a part of the city. That, Mr. Mayor, I just want to add a little bit of that, but also going forward, I would urge that, from the onset, that, you would involve, if it happened to be the auditorium and or other trustee and or board of commissions, that any change or any, in this case, is request for a proposal, that we need to include them at this, the starting point, not at the end point. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Manager.
Councilor, the one thing I just want to be clear on is that when we issued this RFP, is again, we opened up any number of possibilities, including continuation of the subsidy or more. We didn't say we won't subsidize. We didn't put a cap on that. We didn't put anything in. We pretty much left it. You can come in with a proposal and make the argument of why you believe, and we offer them the lease option or the management fee or a hybrid, and it was totally open. So it was not. I just want to be clear that we did not try to block anyone out. If anything, we tried to make it so open that anybody could come in and try to put something together.
Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly, just to summarize, it's impossible to evaluate the proposal because nobody's seen it.
Correct.
However, it does make a lot of sense to me, and it should make sense to everybody, I think, that the auditorium board of trustees, the auditorium trustees are going to be working with whoever gets this management contract for the next 5, maybe 8 years. And it makes a lot of sense to have them involved in their input involved in their evaluation involved at the outset and before anybody is selected. And that's the point of the motion. Thanks.
Any further discussion? Councilman Johnson.
Yes, the core of the motion is to get advice and recommendations from the Board of Trustees, and I believe they're going to be, at least representatives are going to be included in the review process. So I'm hoping this will take place regardless. And I certainly would say that we should get the advice and recommendations of the Board of Trustees in general as the process moves forward. However, I don't want to derail the process. Right now, we're moving forward. We have a process in place, and it may work fine. So long as it's advantageous to the city and its residents, we should proceed and see what recommendations come out of this before we judge the process. To the mayor, to the manager, is it true that if it is selected as being advantageous, that before a contract is awarded, it would come before the council?
That is correct.
So I think we have another time in which we could judge the process after it's completed and see what happens. And if it's decided not to be advantageous, I assume it would go through a new RFP process.
That's correct.
So that And I hope that at that time we get more input from the Board of Trustees to show them the due respect. Just to, maybe they have ideas on what can be done. I mean, as far as things like concessions, the current management contract has that already. So they have the option to choose who they use for concessions. That's already in place, has been, as long as it's been managed for us. I mean, it could be that the new company chooses other vendors to provide the concessions. I'm hoping that the greater economic good will lean them in. And the fact that shows usually start later in the evening, that people can go to restaurants to get meals beforehand, that should continue in a theater-type atmosphere. So I'm hopeful that overall the process will work and we'll get a management company that's advantageous. We're going to need one anyway, whether it's this one or we decide we want to go through the process again and see if there are better proposals out there. But maybe this is a good proposal. Let the process go through and let's see what comes out of it first. Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah, let me just clarify. Nobody's tried to derail the process. However, the motion asks that the auditorium trustees look at it as a body, right? What you're talking about and what the manager has is an evaluation team looking at it, and there is one member of the trustees to be named later. This is different than that. That one person on the evaluation team from the auditorium trustees does not satisfy this motion. This motion asks that the auditorium trustees look at the proposal.
Mr. Manager.
There are actually two members of the Board of Trustees on the evaluation team, Mr. O'Donnell and Mr. Topier.
Is there any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
I'm not going to reiterate a lot of the comments or sentiments that have been expressed. I agree. I mean, if we have a Board of Trustees, it just seems to make sense that they do weigh in on this, on the RFP. And I know you said that they didn't, but is there a particular reason why you didn't ask them, Mr. Manager?
We basically used the same RFP that was used by the Board of Trustees before, and we just added in some sections that allowed that flexibility to see what type of deal we could get. And once the RFP was out on the street, we did forward it on to the trustees and asked for any comments. And everything that they brought back to us was really had already been addressed either in the RFP or in the addendums.
So knowing there was only one bidder, and I have to say, we've had this discussion in the past when the arena was not doing very well. Having one organization running both facilities is probably not a good idea. The venue sizes, the size may be different, but when you go out to look for events to go to these facilities, it's good to have competition. I think it's good to have competition anyway, and having received just one bid, that's got to raise a red flag that something in this RFP must have prohibited or prevented another entity from bidding. It just doesn't make any sense that there's a facility down there. You know, businesses are looking for business. I can remember even the university had more than one bidders when they sent their RFP out. So it would seem to me that with only one bidder, we would think about scratching the process. What didn't work? Why are we only getting one bid to run this facility during these times? I say these times where, you know, businesses are out there looking for more work. So I'm leery of having one company when we have two competing venues in the city. I know they're different sizes, and we've heard that argument before, but in large part, I don't think it's healthy to have one organization running both of these. At that point, I think we should just have looked at it and said, whatever's in here didn't work. It didn't get the responses that we were looking for, and let's start fresh. Let's go to the auditorium trustees. Let's get their thoughts. Let's put all our heads together and see if there's a better way to do this. And I mean, the contract doesn't expire till June, so there's no need to to stick with no one's trying to derail it, but let's rework the process so we get better results.
Councilor Martin.
Well, I don't, with all due respect, I don't know what that means. No one's trying to derail the process, but let's start over. I mean, Councilor Kennedy specifically said he thought the process should continue. Councilman Donza said that, the manager said that, and I don't think we should be prejudging that. So I have no problem with the motion seeking input from the trustees, but we need to see what the end result of that is, and we're not really in a position to judge that now, simply just because there was one bidder. There were others interested. There was a pre-bid conference, is that correct? There were multiple parties interested at that time. Why people didn't submit is, I guess, up to them. But I think, we at least owe it to evaluate this one before we go down another road.
Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
There's nothing to evaluate. You got one bid, and you either accept it or you don't. I don't know how long that takes, but when you have other proposals, then you can evaluate one against the next. So derailing the process, I mean, how long is it going to take you, Mr. Manager, to evaluate this process, or this one bid that we got?
I would expect it to take 2 or 3 weeks.
Really? Why is it going to take that long?
The committee's going to meet. They're going to go through the proposal. They're going to discuss it. They're going to, in all likelihood, have the bidder come in and make a presentation. They will probably do some research on similar venues that this proposer runs. Assuming they come back to me and say, looks good, then I will, I'll have my discussions with them on aspects of the what we want to look for in a contract and financial issues. Those negotiations will take place. I don't expect that they'll be short. Took a considerable amount of time to hammer out the deal with the spinners, and then I'll come back to the body and say, this is what we've got. This is the proposal. I think we should do it.
There's no way you can negotiate these proposals, right? It's supposed to be a bid process, so whatever is submitted,
It's not
that's
a bid.
what they're
It's
supposed
not
to
a bid.
be.
It's a proposal. And
Okay.
there is negotiations that can take place, just as there was with the spinners.
So you're satisfied that we got one bid, so let's just go through the process and see what happens?
Well, I don't really have grounds to say otherwise at this point in time. And as I think Councilor Laurie asked, how many bids did we get last time? One. Time before that, one. It's not that unusual in these situations. Why didn't we get more? I can't speak to each person that contacted us, why they did bid or they didn't bid. Some people felt it was, that it was wired for the local people. That's the word that we got from one person, or one group. The reality is we tried to make it very clear, this is wide open. Whoever could give us the best proposal, that's what we were looking for.
So knowing there was one bidder prior, and then one bidder after, wouldn't it have made sense to look at the RFP and say, or speak to the people down there and say, why was there only one bidder? Wouldn't you go to the university and say, what did your solicitation look like? We want to get as many bidders as we possibly can, rather than just apparently you or your administration just adding a couple of things to the RFP and sending it out. I mean, you're right. You said it earlier. The word on the street that and maybe that's why. Global is, they're in the university, they're here, and looks like they're going to get it. Sure, lo and behold, there's only one bidder.
That's not the rumor that was, there was some rumors in some quarters that was the case. There were other rumors that it was wired for other people. But as far as why did we only get one before, and why did we only get one before that, and that's why when we went into the RFP process, we didn't narrow it down and say we're looking for just this, and we didn't just advertise in the local newspaper. We spread out, we reached out, to people. I mean, we had people that came to visit us from Iowa. You know, that we had other people contact us from, I believe, down in Connecticut, that you know, were interested. We only had, you know, we had a number of people that came for the tour, but we had other people that reach out because we did reach out, and they, you know, this is what we came up with. But we adapted the RFP to allow any type of proposal that could come in as long as it met certain minimum criteria, and you know, so that was our improvement upon the last process.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Being 13 minutes after 10 o'clock, we would need a motion to continue. Motion to waive Rule 5 by Council Leahy, seconded by Council Lowry. Roll call.
Mayor Murphy.
No.
Counsel Nguyen.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy.
Motion to adjourn. So moved by Councilman Johnson, seconded by Council Martin. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so vote. Stand adjourned.
You got your motions in now, Marty.